Trump can't pardon himself out of this one, and what that means for a potential plea deal. All that and more now on Graf's Grievances. An Atlanta grand jury charging former President Donald Trump and 18 co-conspirators with operating a criminal enterprise seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. The sprawling 41-count indictment alleging Trump pushed false claims of voter fraud and pressured Republican officials in Georgia to help him secure the state's electoral college votes. The new indictment, brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, covering some of the same ground as a separate federal criminal indictment brought by special counsel Jack Smith in Washington earlier this month. However, unlike Smith's federal indictment, Willis's state case is inoculated from a presidential pardon, meaning even if Trump were to be re-elected president, he would not have the power to attempt to pardon himself if convicted. In addition, Georgia is one of just 5 states that doesn't grant pardon power to the governor. So Trump, who has now been indicted for a 4th time this year, can't rely on a potentially friendly Republican governor in the Peach State granting him reprieve. Under Georgia's constitution, pardon power rests with a 5-member board of parolees and pardons, who are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state Senate. But even if the board were to be sympathetic to Trump, they do not have the power to grant preemptive pardons, and can only consider pardons for people who have served at least 5 years of their sentence. In essence, Trump, who is facing up to 20 years in prison if convicted of racketeering, would have to serve at least 5 years in jail before being considered for a pardon. However, when Trump's trial in Georgia might get underway, if ever, is anyone's guess. While DA Willis is seeking a trial date within the next 6 months, that is very unlikely to happen, considering not only Trump's army of lawyers working overtime to delay the case, but also the complexity of the case itself. And should Trump retake the White House next year, you can be sure that his legal team will argue that the presidency makes him immune from state charges. But even if that argument holds water, the 13 felony charges Trump is facing in Georgia are not going anywhere. And that is why a plea deal looks ever more likely. Sure, if Trump wins the Republican presidential nomination and defeats President Biden next year, the case will likely never go to trial, because, let's face it, Trump will never leave the White House again. But if Trump somehow does not win the Republican presidential nomination, or loses to Biden in 2024, you can be sure he will be looking to make a deal. Trump will not be able to get a presidential pardon for state charges, and will likely want to avoid going to trial at all costs. And that is because Trump believes the entire legal system is rigged against him. Why would he put his fate in the hands of a Georgia jury and face off against a prosecutor, Fani Willis, who he has repeatedly attacked as a, quote, rabid partisan and out to get him, if Trump can make a deal and potentially minimize any jail sentence he could face if convicted? Of course, if Trump waits until after he loses re-election to try to make a deal with prosecutors, he will have very little leverage left. But if he were to try to make a deal before the next year's election, he could agree not to seek the presidency in exchange for avoiding jail time. Trump, however, is not going to do that, because he is confident he will not only win the Republican presidential nomination, which he almost certainly will, but he will go on to defeat President Joe Biden in the general election. And it is that bet that I believe will end up being Trump's crucial mistake. Without the protection of the presidency, he will spend the rest of his life mired in legal entanglements that likely land him in prison if he survives the humiliation of losing to Joe Biden again. Thanks for watching Graf's Grievances. Let me know what you think, and please subscribe.